Okay, it's 5:08 on Tuesday, July 8th, and I'll call the meeting to order for Finance and Personnel Committee. Joy, may we please have roll call?
Okay, John,
Here.
Todd Spaeth,
Here.
Crystal,
Here?
and then Todd Kirking is excused. Emma is absent.
All right. And item number 2 is first period for public comment. If there's anyone online, I don't see anyone in the audience who'd like to speak to us, this would be the time to do so. Nobody?
Good.
Okay. Item number 3 is approval of the committee minutes from June 24th, 2025.
Todd, I move to approve the minutes from the date you
Okay.
mentioned.
Thanks. Okay, we've got a motion and a second for the minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, those are approved. Item number 4 is discussion with possible action on processing of 2024 medical and copay claims with Employee Benefits Corporation. But that's Nate.
I think Joy's gonna start. this one.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so Lori had received an email from Employee Benefits Corporation. And what had happened is our medical and prescription copay claims were not processed for 2024. And since the run out period for 2024 had passed, they need our authorization to process. Lori let them know, you know, it's out of our 2024 budget's already closed. Their estimate came back at 7180. So we're just looking for an approval for that, but, you know, a final amount at the discretion of her in case that they find something, you know, within the ballpark kind of reasonable there. But that's kind of the backstory. It wasn't nothing on our end, it was on their end.
Joy, was that amount for the entirety of 2024? Like they didn't pay out any copays or?
Right. Well, because when they did the audit and went back there, because the person who emailed her, our rep, they had asked the team who was looking into this. And so it affects more than one employee. So for whatever reason,
Right.
it was just missed and they must have caught it on a recent claim.
Yeah, but it was for all
Hmm.
prescription copays?
Yes, the employees part that they get reimbursed.
Yeah, okay.
Wow. Good.
Yeah, I didn't get the sense that it was the entirety of it. I got the sense it was a period, but nonetheless, like Lori and I talked about this and essentially, yeah, it was due to a quote unquote coding error on the side of our, I think it was Quartz, frankly, or either our it was EBC. Yeah, so essentially we said, you know, it's through no fault of anybody's fault here at the city or the employees certainly. And so, you know, my recommendation is that we need to pay this because that HRA benefit
Mhm.
was set up for explicitly these
Exactly.
purposes, and it was just an error that it didn't happen. So you know, I think part of what Lori and I wanted to do is like at first we're like, well, yeah, just pay it, but because it's going to come out of the 2025 budget versus the 2024
Yep.
budget, it's going to throw this budget off, but it made last year's budget look better. And
Okay.
it's one of those things. I mean, it's
So
a
we-
big significant amount, but essentially we're looking for approval for us
Yeah.
to authorize that to be paid out.
Okay, so we had it set aside for last year, but it just didn't happen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we forecast how much of the HRA,
yeah.
you know, copay will be used based on historical numbers
Right.
and number of employees on insurance and things like that. And so, yeah, I think we're covered. Whether it's now over between, you know, from last year, I haven't looked at it, but
Mhm.
I think it's all legitimate money to be paid out anyway.
What would you like to do?
This is Todd. I motion to pay the copay claims to Employee Benefits Corporation for 2024.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. All those or do we need to have a roll call? Yeah.
Okay, Todd Spaeth,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Okay.
I just want to be clear on that motion there too, is that what Joy had kind of said is the the number that they gave her was 7180,
But it
but we are concerned that
yeah.
they might find something or that number wasn't exact, and without Lori here to say how exact it was. So essentially what Joy had said
Mhm.
was, this is the ballpark number, but at the discretion of the clerks to just approve it going forward. Okay, everybody's comfortable with that, having been understood?
Yep.
Super.
All righty. Item number 5 is payment of the bills.
Okay. Okay, on the original bills, I think on page 2, I just noted at the bottom was the first quarter taxi grant payment for 2025. That was like 12,886. And on page 5, we did pay Sleepy Hollow for the Dodge truck that was approved at the last council meeting. So that was 45,355. And on the last page of the original bills, Lori has her checks to the bond trust services. Those are those, like for the bond principal and interest and that. So that's her normal thing. I just wanted to point those out because they are a little bit on the larger side. Additional bills. These are pretty much a lot of our standard monthly bills. But on the third page, the check to Keller for the pay request 10 to the fire station project, it doesn't show paid, but after it was entered, later in the day, we did end up paying that so we could send them proof that it was paid and get that going. And I think that was about it. On the
We had
last,
some TID 7 stuff on page 5 that looks like it was for the landfill.
yes, on the bottom there, if you had any questions, Sarah's here because that was the 3650 to the ISCO Industries and then the 14,000 to TRC Environmental.
Okay. All righty. Does anybody else have questions for Joy? No? If not, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the bills. Okay.
Todd, I second the motion.
Okay, motion and a second to pay the bills. May we have roll call, please, Joy?
Okay, Crystal,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Todd.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Item number 6 is discussion with possible action on budget goals for 2026.
Okay, the budget process we showed last council meeting, if you'll recall, the first thing we sort of do every year is we go to each one of the departments, committees, and we ask them for upfront sort of feedback and direction, right? The goal of our budget process is to ask for that feedback and do check-ins periodically. We do it on the front end, we do it in the middle, we do it in the end when we ask for approval. So just everybody has ample opportunities to sort of weigh in. And this is for specifically the administrative budget and what I refer to as the other budgets, things like municipal court or taxi or well, those are really it anymore. Taxi and the municipal court, which is really just the prosecutor at this point. So what I have in front of you is just a spreadsheet, and I'll zoom in here a little bit, that just kind of goes through what the administrative budget is and just sort of refresh everybody's memory on that. So again, for the most part, this is City Hall, Joy, myself, Lori, a portion of me actually, but Joy and Lori, portion of our administrative assistant, those are pretty much the wages that come out of admin. And then there's just a lot of things that are covered in administrative that are actually citywide. So all of our miscellaneous insurance here, that's all citywide insurance. So that's citywide workers' comp. It's citywide property and liability insurance, right? And it's the citywide insurance claims expense, which is always shown as a 0 for budgeting purposes, because I don't know how you would ever forecast what your insurance claims are going to be for the next year, right? So we just zero that out as well as zero out the income. And then you have things like maintenance budgets that cover us as well as a few other buildings. It covers City Hall, police department, library. But that's kind of the long and short of it. This is really just the utilities for running City Hall, equipment and supplies. This is really the big thing you'll find here is your computer expenses, your office supplies. Under other is where you'll find like elections, the donations we make to the not the taxi, the smart bus and the Baroka Westby Trail. We make a contribution to them annually, as well as this is where our fireworks budget is for both insurance and actually buying the fireworks. It's also where you'll find when we do end of year gifts for the staff across the city. This is the budget it comes out of. And then contract for services is probably the biggest one because this is where you see accounting, the city assessor. This is where you see like CETA, Payne and DeVita, so the Food Enterprise Center as well as the chamber are all coming out of these general areas. CETA is the firm that we brought on to help with economic development. Recently, James Hankey is the gentleman's name who's been supporting like the Hanson Farm and things like that. Yeah, a lot of CETA, Vita,
I know.
chamber. We're using a lot these days. And then you'll see this is Hopkins and Hopkins, our city attorney here. And then usually we use this for like just like a reserve amount. Pest control is under this. So there's just kind of a grab bag in a way is what you'll find here. So that's a rundown of the administrative budget in terms of what is contained within there. At the top, you'll see the different years, which shows like over the course of time, how has stuff grown or shrunk. You'll see that last year, the city or this administrative budget grew by $65,000. But when you look at it, you'll notice one of the biggest jumps was this contract for services. And really what that is just the additional payment to tourism down here, right? Because tourism, we brought in so much more room tax, that much more room tax per state statute has to go back out to the Tourism Commission. So it wasn't like we wanted to spend that. It's actually a good thing because it means we're bringing in a heck of a lot more revenue. So there wasn't a lot of changes in the administrative budget going into last year. Even when you look at wages, part of the reason why wages increased ever so in such a small way is because Trina's wages went back.
Right.
All back to the library for the most part, except for maybe 5%. She had been helping out with like special projects coordination in 2024, and we sent her that back in 2025. And then a lot of this you can see here, much like many of the other departments, efforts to cut, efforts to cut, efforts to cut, efforts to cut, right? Like to help make budget for the city as a whole. The administrative department made its cuts as well. So, before I move on to discussion of any goals that I would have, does this group have any questions about what the administrative budget contains?
Not specifically. It's what I expected.
So to put it simply for next year, I think what we're going to want to focus on as far as budget priorities is number one, getting a better handle on our utilities and seeing if there's ways we can shrink those down. We're getting beat up a little bit this year when it comes to XL and MG&E. We're trying to get the building to regulate a little bit better, but I think part of the issue is just rising energy costs are hard to predict. And last year we ended up doing way better than budget, and this year a couple of our buildings aren't. But beyond fuel and utilities, the biggest thing I would like to prioritize is staff wages.
Yep.
And this is going to be a theme across the city. We have lost a ton of ground in terms of paying competitive staff wages over the last 5 years. And that's almost entirely due to inflation. Even before 2020 actually inflation went down, but 21 and 22 in particular really shot up. And one of our goals last year, and we'll see this when we talk about it at council, was to match CPI for wage increases across the city, and we did not do that. We were short by about 0.5%. And so really what I would like for the staff that are part of the administrative budget, as well as the staff across the city, is just to really have a prioritization on paying competitive wages as best as we can and trying to catch people back up to the impact that inflation had on the value of their salary. So that's my pitch to you, but this is your time to sort of tell me, and through me also tell Lori, and Joy's here listening as well, like, what would you like us to, how would you like me to approach the administrative budget this year when in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, start crafting my budget? Do you have other priorities you would like me to consider?
Well, and I know for me, I said, I know we're gonna be in not a difficult spot, but a pressured place for a few years here. And so I think that the big thing is the staff, keeping the good staff we have. And also just, watching what projects come up. We don't really need to start a whole lot of stuff in the next year in the way I look at it, because we've got so much on our plates now. But that's it. Anybody?
Yeah, and I've thought the last couple of years too, we've just kind of gone stagnant with wages, and I think we're losing good employees because of that. And so we need to retain, some of these people and keep them on board. We don't need department heads training new people all the time and taxing them in their jobs too. So employee retention, I think, is one of the things we need to look at. Yeah.
Okay. Do we need to take an action on this then? Is that, or
No,
just
Every
discussion?
year, I just take notes during these
Okay.
budget conversations, and then when it comes time to sit down with the
Yep.
budget team, I try to bring them back up, and certainly when I do my final presentation of the budget, I try to reiterate, like, here's what I
Okay.
heard at the beginning of this process of what the goals were. Some of them we hit, some of them we don't hit, but just trying to keep those front and center.
Okay.
But no action, I
Okay.
think at this time.
Alrighty. Then we have the next one is item number 7, which is administrative updates.
You want to go first, Joy?
Sure. Okay, so for myself, right now, between billing and payroll is a little bit heavier for me just because we have quite a bit of Park and Rec seasonal staff and processing all their paperwork and just the entry involved with them because, Kale provides me a spreadsheet, which is very nice, but, there's different categories, different GL codes, so it takes a little bit more time. So just trying to keep that accurate. My goal is always no mistakes, so we have smooth payrolls, and I mean, so far things are going pretty well there. I've also been doing some cross training with Beth, our admin assistant. She's been real helpful when it is a busy week. Sometimes payroll and AP falls at the same time, so she's cross training at and like working up vouchers and entering invoicing. And then all of us, it's kind of like wrapping up the alcohol licensing. There's been some stragglers that come in. There's always some that aren't on time, so we're getting that wrapped up. But other than that, we've been utilizing the time to keep scanning and, just getting caught up on different things to be better set for our really busy times.
Thank you.
Thanks, Troy. All right. So on my end here, and also this, and a lot of these are going to be some of Lori as well. We just, you'll see tonight, is sort of the culmination of the issuance of the 2025B debt issuance, that $2.5 million promissory note that we've been working on. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that comes with issuances of that side. Most notably, we had to go through another S&P rating, which is the Standard & Poor's rating that helps dictate, essentially dictates what our credit score is, or credit rating, I should say. And that requires a lot. We actually have to fill out multiple questionnaires between Lori and I. And a lot of this stuff is questions that go back to stuff that happened in 2023, certainly what happened in 2024, how things are going in 2025. And they just have a lot of questions, especially after last year. We had to untangle some historical errors when it came to some of our previous our capital project revenues and expenses that created what was called a negative outlook on our credit rating. We still maintained our A+ rating, but we had a negative outlook. But they had a lot of follow-up questions like, hey, how's that going? Can you just make sure we're still on top of that? And I had to explain a bunch of stuff, dig through old audits and a lot of that stuff can be
Mhm.
cumbersome to mill through. And so that took some doing. Happy to report that we did maintain our A+ credit rating. And actually, they removed our negative outlook. So we're back to a stable outlook this year, which is very much a positive thing. In other news, we finally finished the City Hall project, which I know everybody's like, wait, hasn't that been done for years? The issue with it was the peer review for this community room, which that got done, submitted the bills after Lori cut all the checks for that, or I guess Joy cut the checks for those, but I got copies of those checks, submitted it, went through the final reimbursement, had a conversation with them, made sure everything was in order. And really the last thing, I confirmed with them late last week that, yep, everything's in order. My numbers match. We'll get a bill cut and that should be it. I filled out the last quarterly report on that. And so I think fingers crossed that
Okay.
project's finally done, because boy, has it been unnecessarily long.
Well, good.
Fire station USDA, that's been the other thing that's going on. It's been a little bit of a fight with the USDA, not because the person there isn't doing their job. It's because they're doing multiple people's jobs.
Mm.
There's only so many people there and they're trying to do all these huge projects, and and most projects are bigger than ours, frankly, that they're dealing with. And so, I got a hold of her today and we got pay request number 10 concurrence on so we could get Keller paid out, because that's been sitting around for 3 weeks now and they're probably wondering where's our $650,000. Not to mention we're due probably about 1.8 million in our first reimbursement on the fire station project. And so I've been very active about getting a hold of them and said, where are we at? Where are we at? Where are we at? Because we would like that money that I feel like is eligible money and we're due for. I did get a hold of them and they're looking at next week of
Okay.
hopefully doing the draw request and getting it over to us.
Is that the last draw that we have coming? Or
That's the first draw.
the first draw?
So we
Oh,
have 5.25 million, and,
Yep.
and I've been working for the
Oh.
last 2.5 months, 3 months, trying to get this rolling. And the problem is that they've transitioned. The lady we have now was not the lady who we had before, she wasn't the lady who started, because that was Koo. Koo is a guy, but we've transitioned 3 times between 3 different representatives over the course of the last 5 months, since basically the start of the year. And so it's just been a slog getting everything cute. I think we're finally at the point where like, we have all the things you wanted. Part of what we had to do was remember we had to separate the land
Yep.
yeah.
from the rest of the Wild West days. So
Yep.
we could do that notice of federal interest. That's some of the stuff that we've had to do to get to the
Details.
point where we could actually get our first reimbursement. So this is the first 1.8 million out of 5.25.
When do you anticipate the final draw from Keller that we need to pay and in relation to what we have coming?
Probably October.
Yeah. Do you think it'll be on time? Everything will be on time as far as our draws then?
Yeah, it's hard. I think all we can do is hope and be super nice and empathetic to the nice lady at the USDA who's doing her darn best to hold on. She's like that cat from that poster who's just got one hand on the tightrope, and she's doing her best to shoulder the load. And we'll just be responsive, right? As soon as we get something in, we fire it away and just sort of keep on it. Squeaky wheel gets the oil sort of mentality. So the good news is we haven't had to make any interim financing draws yet.
Mhm.
So it's not like we have interest charges that are starting to rack up. So that's a positive. But at the same point, the amount of principal we have in our investment is less than $500,000 at this point. And so we're just not accruing nearly as much as we could be. If we get that 1.8, we just shove that back into the investment and then we can start generating interest again. So, we're moving, but at the end of the day, other people are making the call. They have to release the money, right?
Mhm.
So that's something just to keep an eye on. Let's see. Economic development's going well. Spanky's deal went through at the last meeting. That took a little bit to make happen. The daycare, we continue to work on the lease agreement with VARC on that, which takes some doing. Railroad Avenue and interest in Railroad Avenue is really cropping up. For those of you who don't know, we own 17-ish acres out there still. that is ready for light industrial development, and we've had some significant interest in that, to the point where you're probably going to start seeing in the next month or so their concept plans. We usually try to bring them in front of council to say, hey, these folks have been coming to VDA for the last 2 months with their ideas. Before we move any further with them, we want to make sure council's on board with generally what we're talking about. So you'll probably see that coming up soon, but you see multiple projects cropping up there. I'd say 3 at this point that have real legs to them.
Awesome.
Last thing is just noxious weeds. June in particular was the end of No Mow May, of course, and tickets started going out for noxious weeds. That's grass length specifically. So the way it works is that the police department really keeps an eye on noxious weeds, and we'll do citations for those. And then I help participate because they submit a letter. Every time somebody gets a citation, there's a letter from me with my name on it to say, like, here's the rules, here's how this works. If you have any questions, let me know. And then so I try to support the police department in that way. Boulevard Gardens are Sarah and her team. So they're going out surveying, making sure people understand Boulevard Gardens and communicating that. But not just weeds in particular. There's been quite a bit of communication with me of people saying, hey, I didn't know this was the rule. Can I please not pay this ticket? So I have to work with them and say, okay, it's not for me to say that. It's not for the police department to say it. Once the citation is issued, you have to challenge it by, and then showing them the path on how to do that. And then also explaining, like, why aren't we warning people anymore? And I think for the most part, people have been okay. Once I explain, it's like, well, the problem is people take advantage of it. If every time you got a warning when you're doing something wrong, what's preventing you from continuing to do something wrong? So, so that's been quite a bit of a time suck, to be honest with you, in terms of, I think every week it's a couple hours where I have to spend talking to people and directing them, working with the municipal prosecutor on, like, what is the right way for people to do this, especially so that municipal prosecutor is new to us.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're doing things properly in tandem. But other than that, that's sort of the long and short of kind of what, other than the normal stuff, what's been going on for me for the last, I don't think we've provided an update to you guys in 2 months now, or maybe 2.5, 3 months.
Busy.
For the administrative side, we just haven't, every time I talk to Lori about it, either it's a packed agenda and we don't have room on the administrative budget, or she's gone, which she was gone this time too. So I just said, let's just do it. So any questions for me? I'm happy to answer.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Anybody? All right. Item number 8 is a second period for public comment. Again, do we have anybody online? We don't have anybody here. No? Okay. Then we would be looking for adjournment, number 9.
Todd, I move to adjourn.
Okay. All right, a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.